Hi, this is Frank Schaefer, and I have spoken about this before, but sometimes things are important enough to keep pounding away in hopes that even one person can make a tiny little change and open some doors for change. You know, in the 1970s and 80s, we were part of a Republican strategy that had been used before. What am I talking about? The Southern strategy, where Nixon unleashed a racist element within the Republican Party as a new way to win elections. Now, it wasn't new in the sense that racism hadn't existed before, but he decided to play the race card, and it was a very conscious decision not to change the way we treat each other in terms of different races getting along or hating each other, but simply as a method of winning an election by unleashing a racist vote. Ever since then, the Republican #1 playbook for winning elections has been pick a group of people who are a minority that already have people who hate them, whether that's Blacks or Jews or gay people or women or transgenders, whomever it may be, and then build a campaign focused on focusing the hatred of your own followers on that group, not only as a kind of a whipping boy, but also, much more importantly, as red meat for the perpetual Republican, conservative, Christian nationalist rage machine. The victim who is hated could be a Black civil rights worker. The victim who is hated could be a woman who wants rights over her own body to conceive and bear children or abort babies as she chooses. The victim might be a gay person who wants to get married at some point. There's always a changing group of people targeted, but the technique stays the same. It's about focusing rage to empower the person running in ways that bring them not just voters, but more importantly, keep their core base animated and angry, as opposed to animated with hope, animated with change, animated with ambition to be optimistic about the future. It is animation through hatred and through consolidation of the little bubbles in which we all live. Man against woman, straight against gay, Black against white, whatever it may be. Having been part of this process, for which I am heartily ashamed, in the 1970s and 80s, having been part of making a film series and book called Whatever Happened to the Human Race, that focused Republican anger on a new litmus test, and that is, are you pro-life or pro-choice? And if you were pro-choice, we will have nothing to do with you. By ginning up that anger, what we did in the 70s and 80s led to abortion clinic bombings and some abortion doctors being shot, because after hatred and rhetoric comes violence, like night follows day. Having been part of that process and having changed my mind on the issues of women's rights and my politics, and having spent many years through books such as my memoir, Crazy for God, trying to explain what happened, I have a nose and a sensitivity for something. And that is right now, in an exact mirror image of the campaign we launched against women, focusing on them through our misogynistic anti-abortion campaign, the hatred of Christian nationalists, to gin that up into a voting group of people. Having been there, done that, I recognize what Ron DeSantis is doing. He's building an entire campaign by focusing on transgender men and women and focusing the ire of Christian nationalists on them. I have seen this. This is Nixon's playbook again. This is the Southern strategy updated through hatred of Black people. Then we adopted it in hatred of women. And now it is being readopted in terms of hatred of trans people. We've got to be aware of what is happening. An entire political campaign is being waged focused on the hatred of one minority group. And you can have questions about the trans movement. You can wonder, as I do sometimes, about the excesses of the language police on the left and right. You can worry that sometimes there's some fad element of this that is harming some young people. Those are all legitimate discussions. But let's just take it at face value that Ron DeSantis and his people don't give one crap about those discussions. What they care about is only one thing: focus on a minority, exacerbate and amplify the hate against them as a means of fundraising, of rising tempers that keep voters in your camp, and in Ron DeSantis's case, very specifically, competing with Donald Trump, who ran his own hate machine very successfully and won in 2016 because of it. But now, I just say it again, we focused the hate on women in the 70s and 80s in the same way that Nixon focused it on Black Americans. And now that same playbook is being dusted off and rewritten by Ron DeSantis and his team, focusing on trans men and women. This is shameful. We should see it coming. And as I predicted in another video, there will be violence, as there was in our case, in what we unleashed against abortion providers. It's on the way again. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaefer.